knows how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with. That's me.
Well,
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead, make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. Welcome to the show. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. Another jam-packed show, folks, and we're going to try and get it all in. It's just a lot of stuff going on. One thing after another. It is happening. This coming Monday, next week, Obama will be sworn in again for the second term as president of this great nation. And there are several people who are going to be singing and performing and giving the prayer at this inauguration. There was a pastor out of Georgia, I believe Atlanta, but definitely Georgia-based pastor at a church by the name of Passion City Church. Pastor Luis Giglio was set up to give the benediction at President Obama's second inauguration. And apparently back in the 1990s, the pastor gave a talk, a sermon at his church. He spoke out against homosexuality and same-sex marriage. And in short, he said to his congregation, this was back in the mid-1990s, he said to his congregation, you must never accept homosexuality as a norm or same-sex marriage as a norm. And homosexuality is a sin. And this is back in the mid-1990s. After this pastor was announced by the White House that he would be giving the benediction, a guy by the name of Josh Israel, senior investigator reporter for thinkprogress.org at the Center for American Progress Action Fund, did a little background check on the pastor. He discovered that the pastor had given this talk at his church and wrote about it, and now the pastor is not going to be giving the benediction at the church. And I have Josh with me. Josh, good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
How did you find out about what made you look into the background of this pastor, and how did you discover this talk or speech he gave about homosexuality being a sin?
Well, there was some controversy 4 years ago about the president's inauguration having a pastor giving the invocation who had been fairly critical of homosexuality in the past. And it struck me as worth looking into just to see whether or not any of the people who selected this time would have that same controversy. And I basically just used Google. I found a website that had a repository of sermons that Pastor Giglio had given over the years, and came across this one, and some of the comments struck me as worth relaying to readers.
And that was, I believe, last time, back in 2008 or 9, it was Rick Warren who gave the benediction. Is that right?
Yes, he gave the benediction. Or actually, he gave the invocation.
Yeah.
I think the benediction was given by a former pastor from the Southern Christian Leadership Council.
I want to, Andre, go to soundbite number 2C. I just want to play a short soundbite of what this pastor Giglio said back in the mid 1990s about homosexuality. Listen to this, and I'll get your response, Josh.
Here's some more of what Giglio got caught saying that got him kicked out of the inauguration.
If you look at the counsel of the Word of God, Old Testament, New Testament, you come quickly to the conclusion that homosexuality is not an alternate lifestyle. Homosexuality is not just a sexual preference. Homosexuality is not gay, but homosexuality is sin. It is sin in the eyes of God, and it is sin according to the Word of God.
Again, Pastor Giglio is down in Georgia there, Passion City Church, and it's a very popular church down there, a large church, a huge church in that area. What is wrong with, Josh, what is wrong with what the pastor just said about homosexuality being a sin?
Well, I don't know that I'm going to say there's something wrong with him saying that that's his view. It's just not a view that's shared by the majority of Americans or the President of the United States.
Well, it's not a view shared by the President, that's for sure, but majority of Americans do see homosexuality as a sin.
Well, I mean, if you look at recent poll numbers, that seems to not be the case. But, I mean, you know, the challenge here is that he's essentially saying that being gay is, and it's not so much in that clip that you played, but being gay is something that can be cured, something that can be changed, and that there is a way out of a homosexual lifestyle by basically praying that you will change. And every major medical, psychological, psychiatric group in this country has taken the opposite position on that, saying that that is not, in fact, the case at all. And, in fact, that these attempts to get people to change their sexual orientation are actually harmful to the country. And, you know.
Well, not every major medical or scientist or whomever is saying this. Some are the ones who sympathizes with homosexuality, but most are saying that it can be cured, that it is a sin, and through God, all things are possible. And by way of God, even the Scripture speaks of this as being something that they can overcome because it is a sin. Do you think this pastor should not be able to or be allowed to speak at or give the benediction at the inauguration this Monday because of his views?
Well, I mean, he voluntarily withdrew after this, so it wasn't like we were calling for him to be removed or to withdraw specifically. We were just putting out the description. But it does seem that his views are not representative of the vast majority of Americans or the administration.
Again, that's not true. It's majority of Americans do see homosexuality as a sin. It's something that people can overcome. And he didn't necessarily volunteer to withdraw from this event. He received a call from the White House, and after that, he decided not to do it. And we don't know exactly what the White House said to him.
Well, I mean, I don't know what sort of conversations they may or may not have had, but Pastor Giglio made it clear that he was voluntarily withdrawing. And I certainly see no reason not to take him at his word on that. I don't think a pastor would be bearing false witness to his congregation or to the country.
Did you hear Lawrence O'Donnell say in that soundbite that I played that this pastor was kicked off or out of this ceremony? He wasn't allowed to participate after all this came out? Okay, folks, welcome back. I am talking to Josh Israel, senior investigator reporter for thinkprogress.org. He did a little background check on Pastor Louis Giglio, who was set to do the benediction at Obama's inauguration this coming Monday. But the pastor gave a talk in his church, a sermon on homosexuality back in the 1990s. And all of a sudden, he's not going to give this benediction after this report came out. I want to get to your call right now, but let me first ask Josh. Josh, are you as surprised as I am that America is a Judeo-Christian nation, and in 2013 we got the abnorm being presented as the norms, such as abortion, homosexuality, same-sex marriage, all this crap that we knew a long time ago that was wrong, that it is sin, and that you can't overcome it, is now in the forefront of our lives, trying to be presented as a norm. Are you as surprised about that as I am and most of Americans are?
Well, no, I don't think it's a surprise at all. First of all, I think this is a country of a whole lot of different beliefs and a whole lot of different people who have different religious views, and a significant number of Jewish and Christian faith communities have taken a different interpretation than yours and believe that love is love, and that, if you look at the growing number of Christian groups that have embraced same-sex marriage equality, it's not a surprise that 51% of Americans now believe same-sex marriage should be legal.
It's, the so-called Christians who have accepted this as a norm are not real Christians. They are Christians in namesake, but most of them are liberal, godless Christians who are using the Bible and God for their own personal gain. The things that they believe is not what God believe or promote, and yet they are trying to promote it as norm. So that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make them a Christian.
Well, I mean, obviously, different groups have different beliefs as far as who or what qualifies as a Christian and who or what doesn't. But, the Judeo-Christian history of this country includes a whole lot of different ranges of what is Judaism and what is Christianity.
And another thing about that we all know about homosexuality is not about love. Homosexuality is not about love. It's not about family. It's not about civil rights. It's about sex. And these people, for whatever reason, have been traumatized, and they have a perverted idea about sex, and that is something that you can overcome.
Well, it's absolutely about rights when in the majority of U.S. states, it is perfectly legal for someone to be fired just because they identify as gay or lesbian, or even just because their employer thinks they might be gay or lesbian.
Well, that's not true.
No, it is true.
Let me squeeze in.
There are, I think, 20-something states that have laws preventing that, but there is no national law saying that that's not legal.
Amazing. Let's go to Danny down in Georgia. Danny, welcome to the show, sir. You're on with Josh.
Hey, I just wanted to ask Josh a question. If he was surprised as I was that a pastor who was influential to Barack Obama's life, as much as he was, who brought Barack Obama to know Jesus Christ, which is, in some people's eyes, the most important thing on this earth, was he a little surprised that he kind of got thrown underneath the bus because he's got traditional biblical views, and are traditional biblical views now looked at and frowned upon amongst society and looked at as being boycotted? Because it's just my opinion that, the biblical views and the biblical definition of marriage wasn't to make gay people mad. It was to establish the family. And I just wanted to know if he was a little surprised that Barack Obama didn't make a stand over someone who had a personal influence on his life rather than politics.
Josh?
Well, I'm just to be clear, are you talking about Pastor Giglio or are you talking about a different pastor?
I'm talking about Pastor Giglio. I mean, he was an influential part of Barack Obama's life, in his life, and he was set to have this inauguration, and then this came up of something that happened, many years ago, and it just seems that if you have a traditional biblical view, that is shunned upon even by the administration of the President of the United States. And I just want to know if you were taken back over a little bit over the fact that he is now not going to participate in this, and does that, do you think it's right or wrong that this has happened the way it did?
Well, I don't think Pastor Giglio and the president have had a particularly long relationship. My understanding is that they met in the past couple of years. Pastor Giglio has taken a very positive role in this country in opposing human trafficking and modern-day human slavery, which the president worked with him on, and Pastor Giglio is to be commended for that, absolutely. And I believe his selection was probably as a result of that. But
why did they invite him? They knew his background. Why did they invite him?
Well, my understanding is that they didn't know that these were his views, and they were impressed with his work on human trafficking. Again, something to be commended. And when these views came out and Pastor Giglio withdrew, the inaugural committee announced yesterday that Reverend Luis Leon, an Episcopal leader, Episcopal priest in D.C., who actually gave a similar benediction at George W. Bush's second inaugural, will be the replacement. So,
my final question, we're out of time here with you in this statement. Do you agree with me that as homosexuality and the so-called same-sex marriage come to the forefront, it's going to destabilize America, and America will continue to be destroyed from within?
No, I don't. I think, in fact, having more people of all types working to form marriages will be a positive thing. If you look at the number of opposite-sex marriages that have been failures ending in divorce with all sorts of problems, I think there are definitely problems with marriage in this country, but expanding access to them is not one of them.
Where is the stabilizing force in society then? What is building, the block? If we accept, especially if we accept same-sex marriage?
Well, I think accepting same-sex marriage strengthens that block. It encourages people to make a commitment to each other.
There is no proof of that at all. Any time homosexuality has been accepted, even when you read the scriptures on it, society was destroyed.
Well, I mean, if you look at the number of states in this country that have accepted marriage
equality, hold on for me. Can you hang on one short second?
Sure.
Okay. Let me take a quick break. I'll let you respond to that. Back in a moment. Okay, folks, my final segment with Josh Israel. He is with thinkprogress.org, a liberal group that is fighting for what they believe in, I guess. He wrote an article about this Pastor Luis Giglio down in Atlanta, Georgia. His church there is Passion City Church. He gave a talk back in the 1990s about homosexuality and same-sex marriage. He was scheduled to speak at Obama's inauguration, give the benediction at least. Josh did a little background check on this guy. He's no longer giving the benediction. Josh, let me just say, what's irritating about this is that I can't believe that homosexuals say that they want freedom, they want the right to do whatever they want to do and not be discriminated against. But when pastors and Christians disagree with them, such as this pastor did, he is being discriminated against. And so I'm starting to believe that homosexuals are incapable of telling the truth about what they really want. I'm believing that what they really want is to force America to accept a norm, an app norm as a norm. And when Americans don't accept it, they discriminate against those Americans who don't accept homosexuality as norm. Are you seeing the same thing by this example?
I don't see how you can call this a case of discrimination. I mean, he's certainly free to have these views. He's free to speak about these views.
But he should have been free to speak at the inauguration as well.
Well, I mean, he was not even removed from the position.
I'm sure he was, Josh. The guy, he got a call from the White House, and an hour later he said that he's not going to do it. And this is after the White House invited him to do it. And once you wrote this...
You think Pastor Giglio was lying when he said that he was withdrawing voluntarily?
Well, he said that he was withdrawing because of the controversy behind this, and he didn't want to have that going on at this time, which is a nice way of saying he was disinvited.
Well, I think we should take him at his word. I think it's kind of unfair of us to assume that he's somehow lying about this.
You don't need much assumption there. If you get a call from the White House and an hour later you're backing out of the deal after being invited, it says that you've been disinvited. It's clear to any normal thinking person.
Well, I think it's also quite possible that he, when he was called, was asked, do you still want to give this speech? And he
no.
opted not to. I don't know.
No.
But again, I don't think we should just assume that Pastor Giglio is lying to the country. The point I was going to make is if you look at states that have accepted same-sex marriage equality so far, the divorce rates, according to the Census Bureau, are actually among the lowest in the country. So by expanding access, it actually is promoting exactly what you're calling for, which is
not
more
true, Josh.
of the building block.
That doesn't make any sense. It's not true.
Well, I mean, you can look at the Census Bureau statistics yourself, but the states that have the highest divorce rates are not
Josh,
states that have allowed marriage equality.
I mean, let's just stay with reality. It's insane to think that two men or two women together as a husband and wife, that's ridiculous. Even if I didn't believe in God or the Bible, it's just insanity. You look at it, you can see it's wrong. It's just crazy.
Well, you certainly can believe it's wrong and it's crazy, but there's a difference between saying something is wrong and saying something shouldn't be legal.
How long has same-sex marriage been allowed?
In the U.S.?
Yes.
Sure. I believe the first legal same-sex marriages were in Massachusetts around 2003, 2004.
Are you a Christian, Josh?
I don't think that's relevant here.
No, it is. I would think so, because if you were, you couldn't believe this kind of stuff.
Well,
Are you Jewish?
I certainly believe that this has happened.
Are you Jewish?
I'd rather keep myself out of the discussion. Thanks.
Let me squeeze Isaac in really fast here from Atlanta, Georgia. Isaac, welcome to the show, sir. You're on with Josh.
Good. I got a two-part question, but first I want to make a comment.
We only have 1 or 2 minutes left, so go right to your question.
Hey, do you believe in a holy creator God?
Josh, do you believe in God?
Again, I think this is really not about my personal beliefs here.
Josh,
second part of my question.
Hold on for me. I have to let Josh run. Josh, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
enjoyed it.
Okay. We're going to take a break. I'll be back in a moment, folks.